Steps out to the right, breaks a tackle. They blitz it. Prescott throws it down the right side for Lamb. Caught it! Back to throw, rush, sacked by Parsons.
Belt-tie snap. Prescott with plenty of time. Lobs it end zone. Jake Ferguson.
The offseason is all about putting in work and sometimes even reaping rewards, especially if you've produced this season before. Welcome back into the Blitz. Nicole Hutchison joined by Nick Harris, and obviously we're seeing a lot of players reap benefits around the NFL after their 2023 seasons. Minicamp's been fun, but contract talks here at the Star have not been so fun, especially for Ceedee Lamb.
Yeah, absolutely. You look at the big three contracts for the Dallas Cowboys this offseason, still waiting on that first one to pop. You look at Ceedee Lamb, he's been holding out of minicamp and OTAs. Dak Prescott awaiting an extension, Micah Parsons. We'll dive into a couple of those, but yeah, still waiting on that first deal to pop.
Certainly, and when we talk about the leaves falling, they certainly fell with Justin Jefferson, Minnesota Vikings wide receiver. If you look at the comparisons, just out of 66 games, Ceedee Lamb has the most catches compared to those two, and he has the less yards, but he also has more touchdown passes caught. If you talk about the comparisons, though, and what Ceedee Lamb has done the past year, I mean, how worthy, though, is he of this contract extension?
Yeah, you look at Justin Jefferson, the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL as it stands today. 4 years, $140 million. It's that $35 million per year annual average that everyone's going to be looking at. And that's the mark that Ceedee Lamb is going to be trying to hit. Brandon Ayuk, maybe even a guy like Jamar Chase could be trying to hit that same number. This wide receiver market is going to change multiple more times throughout the course of this offseason. But when will Ceedee Lamb's domino fall? That could be now, that could be later in the offseason, maybe even into training camp. We saw that with Zach Martin last year. He held out until the very final week of training camp out in Oxnard before he made his appearance. That could happen with Ceedee Lamb, but I think with Jefferson's deal coming off the table and finally getting done, I think the radar starts to pop a little bit for Lamb. You had mentioned more leaves falling. That's what Jerry Jones said that he wanted to see before getting at the negotiation table with Ceedee Lamb. And if you look at CD, that's probably what his agency and his representation wants to see happen as well, because now they have a starting number. They know where to go with that deal and where the negotiations do start.
You certainly want to see him get paid, especially after the historic season he had in 2023. He is not here, but you have Micah Parsons, who is very well present here at the Star. And here's what you have to say about addressing his absence.
I think I always had like my own way of doing things. And, you know, defense is defense. You know, I'm pretty much caught up on everything. I went over it. Paul was meeting up with me, the run game coordinator. So I really wasn't missing anything. So I feel like I was just getting better, getting stronger, getting faster, you know, just doing my things and what Micah does in the offseason. Russell sumos. So I just have fun. I mean, there was a time where Aaron Donald didn't even go to camp and he won Defensive Player of the Year and he realized his team in the playoffs. Like, are we forgetting these times? Like, he wasn't, you're talking about the best defensive player, wasn't even in camp. And we're in mini camp, or a voluntary at that.
Head coach Mike McCarthy did use the word engaged in his press conference all week, and he said that, you know, Micah has been very engaged this offseason. But, Nick, I mean, is it a big deal that Micah has just not been as present as all the coaches would have liked?
I don't know if big deal is necessarily the words that I would use, but I would definitely say it's a note. I mean, you look at Mike Zimmer bringing in this new defensive system, and Micah Parsons, and no matter how you shake it out, he's the most important player in that defensive unit. He can play in multiple levels. He can rush the passer. He can defend the run. He can do a lot of different things, and his versatility just screams all of that as well. So having him involved in these install phases during OTAs, yes, it would have really helped. Yes, it could have helped to bring in some younger guys along, like a Marshawn Nealand or a Viliami Fehoko. But for Micah Parsons, we're going into year 4. We know how Micah operates by this point. I don't think it should be a surprise that he wasn't here for OTAs. But I think what he's been able to do as far as staying engaged, as Coach McCarthy said, I think that's the most important factor. Had he not been able to keep up communication, that's probably where you start to work in the big deal phrase.
I think it is a big deal that he is back and his veteran presence is here. But another big deal, though, Zach Martin, Cowboys right guard, turning the NFL world upside down after speaking to the media on day 1 of mandatory minicamps. Could it be the last season that we see Zach Martin here? We'll break it down up next.
The Dallas Cowboys Blitz, presented by Blockchain.com, is brought to you by AT&T, an official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys. and by blockchain.com. Make your crypto play today. This segment is brought to you by AT&T, an official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys.
Welcome back into the Blitz here at the Star. Nicole Hutchison and Nick Harris. And Cowboys right guard Zach Martin certainly made headlines this week, referencing that this could possibly be his last season here in the Star in a Dallas Cowboys uniform. Here's the quote exactly. "I think I'd be lying if I said it has not entered my mind," right? "I don't know when I'll be done, but it's definitely getting closer to the end. I think it's just a good reminder for myself to stay in the present and take advantage of this year." Nick, this could be a loss if we lose a guy like Zach Martin, 9-time Pro Bowls, the second most by an NFL and O-lineman in team history. But when you talk about a guy like Zach, I mean, what would be missing from this team?
Yeah, that veteran presence.
Yeah.
I mean, he's one of the smartest guys on the entire team, not only on the offensive line. I mean, let's take this year, for example. They are assimilating potentially 2 rookies to start on the offensive line this season, replacing 2 starters. And Zach Martin is a big reason why those guys are able to assimilate maybe a little bit quicker had Zach Martin not been in the building. I mean, he's got so much experience under his belt, not only in his time in Dallas as a surefire Hall of Famer, but going back to his college time at Notre Dame, one of the best in college football. And whenever he was coming out of the draft process, he was always revered for his high IQ. And he has not only taken that into the NFL, but he has excelled that into the NFL. But you look at this situation, he's going into the final year of his contract. Granted, he held out last year to try to get more money going into this season. So you look at the, maybe reading the tea leaves a little bit and understanding where Zach Martin is in his career at age 33. Could this be the last season? I think that there's a possibility that that is true, but I think he retires a Dallas Cowboy regardless. The question is, does it happen in 2025 or maybe further down the road?
And you obviously look at the struggles that this offensive line had in 2023, right? Staying healthy. He's only missed 13 games throughout his career, so he's definitely been that anchor for this offensive line. But do you feel like their replacement is here in the Star?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
You look at TJ Bass, who I've considered the best rookie to come out of the class in 2023, undrafted out of Oregon. I think this team is developing him to be the right guard of the future. I mean, he played guard at the University of Oregon. He got work at right guard whenever Zach Martin couldn't play last season. I think that is the guy you probably want there in the interior, but there's other contenders as well. Nathan Thomas, they just drafted him this past draft class. He's got a potential to play inside. You also have Brock Hoffman. He'll be competing in that center position with Cooper Beebe, but if he doesn't win that job, maybe he slides over and tries to compete at right guard next offseason. So there's a lot of guys that they can be able to work with going into training camp in 2025 potentially, but that's if Zach Martin is not in the building. And as he said, just live in the present, live in this year, and we'll just kind of see where time takes us from there.
I'm playing devil's advocate here. If you're Mike McCarthy, who are you going with? You got to choose right now.
Right now, I'd probably take TJ Bass. I loved what he did last season and being able to bring that to the forefront. I think giving him that starting opportunity, I think it would be huge for his development, especially early on. I think he'd be ready for that task.
All right, we've shined a spotlight on the offensive line on this team, but it's only right that we honor one of the greatest Cowboys of all time, Larry Allen, as we say goodbye to him here on the Blitz.
This segment was brought to you by AT&T, an official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys.
The Blitz continues here inside the Globe Life studio here at the Star. Nicole Hutchison alongside Nick Harris, and we bring in Mickey Spagnola to honor one of the late and one of the greatest, arguably, Cowboys of all time, Pro Football Hall of Fame offensive lineman Larry Allen. Now, Mickey, I mean, I've got to ask you, what was it like covering a guy like that?
Yeah, it was pretty special. You know, Larry, as everybody knows, didn't talk very much. He would smile a lot. He would grunt a lot. But boy, when it was time to play, he could play. And I don't know if I've seen anybody more dominating than he was playing the guard position in the NFL. And, you know, the stories about him go forever. The time he ran down Darian Connor, the linebacker from the Saints, who thought he had a pick six, and gets chased down by a 335-pound offensive lineman who had he had a running head start on him, and it just goes on and on. But yeah, he was awfully, awfully good.
Yeah, you talk about how dominant he was. Let's go ahead and take a look at some of the accomplishments that he did have during his career. He was a Super Bowl champion. That was in 1994. 6-time first-team All-Pro, 11-time Pro Bowl, 1990s and 2000s All-Decade Team, Dallas Cowboys Ring of Honor, inducted in 2011, and an NFL, obviously, Hall of Famer. I mean, you talk about the impact and legacy that a guy like this left. What would you say, and how would you describe that?
Well, I think that what you need to know about Larry Allen is what he had to do to get to where he ended up. We're talking about a guy that grew up in Compton, got in fights when he was young. His mother, Vera Allen, came home after getting beat up, and Mama Vera says, "You go back there and fight. You don't come back as a loser." And Larry will tell the story that the third time he fought the same guy, he finally won. And she said, "Okay, that's fine." A couple of funny stories about him is when he went to the combine and he had to take a physical, so he had a shoulder that people were worried about, and he also had scar tissue all over from getting stabbed when he was a young kid. So they were going to give him an MRI. He didn't fit in the MRI apparatus. He was too wide and too big. So he was a pretty powerful guy. And I'll give you one more real quick. When he was at Sonoma State, some defensive lineman on the opposition was mouthing off before the game. It's like, well, everybody thinks he's so good. Well, he hasn't played us. Well, Larry hit the guy so hard in the chest that he knocked him to the ground, and when he knocked him to the ground, he hit him so hard, the guy tore his ACL. He tore his ACL falling because Larry hit him. Wow. So that gives you an idea. We heard about 700 pounds bench press. Well, this is what this guy did, and there was a lot of players in the NFL that ended up with the Larry Allen flu when they thought they had to face him on Sunday.
Certainly a legacy that he left, and players in the locker room throughout mini camps certainly acknowledging that, and it was a legacy like no other.
Larry is the best offensive lineman in the NFL. He is the most decorated offensive lineman in the history of the Dallas Cowboys. He is already being considered one of the best offensive linemen to ever play the game of professional football.
I'd hate to think where we might have been without Larry Allen. I don't know that any of us anticipated him coming in and being as dominant a player as he was.
He has a punch that will stop a Mack truck. He has strong enough legs to pull a Mack truck. When you think of Larry, it's not a lot of words that you use. Amazing, awesome, outstanding, intelligent.
And remember this, it has never been about me, Larry Allen, but the many, many weaves that helped me out.
Every week, somebody will walk on that field and they will look up and remember what you have done. And they will be inspired by how you did it.
This segment is brought to you by Reliant, the official energy provider of the Dallas Cowboys.
The Blitz continues here at the Star. Nicole Hutchison, Nick Harris, and now we bring in Nick Eatman with his top 10 all-time list.
Thanks, Nicole. And with the sad news of Larry Allen's death this week, it's got us looking at a lot of his highlights, and it really doesn't get any better than his tackle against the Saints in 1994. And it got us thinking, what are some of the best plays in Cowboys history that didn't involve touchdowns? So here's our top 10 list, and spoiler alert, LA makes the group.
All right, here we go. Let's start with number 10, Tony Romo. We've seen this play, the high snap. You're supposed to just go pick it up. You definitely don't want to kick it backwards, but he does. He gets it. Now he does the rest himself, looking for blocks, picks it up, gets the first down and probably the best 4-yard run in Cowboys history. All right, let's go to number 9. If that was the best 4-yard run, this is probably the best 2-yard run. Marion Barber should have been tackled like 3-4 times here by the Patriots. Great players, too, that are missing him in the end zone. He avoids the safety several times, gets back, gets his 2-yard. What a run by the Barbarian, Marion Barber. All right, speaking of running backs, let's go number 8. Emmitt Smith, his record-breaking run where he surpasses Walter Payton as the NFL's all-time leading rusher. Didn't score a touchdown. He thinks he probably could have if he wouldn't have been tripped up. Either way, it'll go down as the record breaker there for Emmitt Smith. Number 7, DeMarcus Ware. He wasn't even supposed to be playing this week. He was hurt the week before, neck injury, very scary moment. Not only does he play, he wins the game against the Saints, the undefeated Saints. Drew Brees, he makes the tackle, sack, forced fumble. Cowboys win the game in 2009. All right, another defensive play. Number 6, Ken Norton Jr. His dad was a boxer. He certainly knew how to fight. Ken Norton knew as well. Kenneth Davis, you can ask him. He stops him cold at the 1-yard line. That kind of set the tone for Super Bowl 27. The Cowboys just bigger and stronger, and it was evident on that play. All right, speaking of Super Bowls, here's another defensive play. Larry Brown in Super Bowl 30 against the Steelers. 2 interceptions. He'd already had one early in the third quarter. Seals the game with this interception in the fourth quarter off Neil O'Donnell. Threw it right to him. Didn't score. Still set up a touchdown. Cowboys win the Super Bowl. All right, number 4, Larry Allen. Probably the greatest move you've ever seen by a big lineman here. Speaking of moving, he's picking him up, putting him down after the interception. Troy Aikman's running pretty fast here as well, but Larry Allen, what a great play for him to make this tackle, save a touchdown, a pick 6 there for Darian Connor. And it just, yes, he was big and strong, but it goes to show right there just how big and agile he was, Larry Allen. What a play. All right, number 3, Jason Witten. Who needs a helmet? Jason Witten didn't on this play. Helmet gets knocked off against the Eagles. Doesn't stop him. He keeps going. Injuries never stop Jason Witten either. That's why he played so many games. But even without a helmet, goes all the way down inside the 10, sets up a touchdown. What an Iron Man Jason Witten was. All right, number 2, Mr. Cowboy Bob Lilly. Chasing Bob Greasy here in Super Bowl 6 against the Dolphins. 29-yard loss. Finally gets him with the sack. That play right there was just evident of how dominant the Doomsday defense was. Led the Cowboys to their first Super Bowl there in the 1971 season. And number 1, Alvin Harper, right over the middle against the San Francisco 49ers in the 92 championship game. The Niners are coming back. They're trying to win this game. They need a stop. What do the Cowboys do? They go right to Alvin Harper on a slant. He breaks it away all the way inside the 10. They end up scoring, win the game, go to the Super Bowl, and win their first one in the 90s to set up the team of the 90s. But that Alvin Harper play really set the tone for the Cowboys to get there, to get back to the Super Bowl.
You don't always have to score a touchdown to make a great play. That's our list of top 10 plays that didn't involve a touchdown. Stay tuned to DallasCowboys.com. We'll be doing these lists down the road as well. Nicole, back to you.
Certainly a highlight reel of plays worth that list, Nick, but there's quite a few players through OTAs that are looking to make some highlight reel-worthy plays, especially through training camp, and you've got a player in mind. Could it be Trey Lance, who is looking to make his stock rise, as we come back right here on the Blitz?
This segment was brought to you by Reliant, the official energy provider of the Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys Blitz, presented by Blockchain.com, was brought to you by AT&T, an official sponsor of the Dallas Cowboys, and by Blockchain.com. Make your crypto play today.
It is finally June and almost time for the Juneteenth celebration. It'll be celebrated a bit earlier this year at the Miller Lite House at AT&T Stadium. It'll be Saturday, June 15th from 3 to 7 p.m. Enjoy live entertainment and shop with Black-owned businesses. It's going to be a lot of fun, but training camp is going to be a lot of fun. And Nick Harris, you have your eye on somebody. Who's caught your eye so far through minicamp.
Yeah, I think you have to take a look at Trey Lance and look at his development that he's had over the course of the last year under Mike McCarthy's system. He has certainly taken that QB school approach with quarterbacks coach Scott Tolzien, and he's taken that into OTAs and minicamp. Looked really sharp during 7-on-7 sessions to end the minicamp on Wednesday. Had a deep 40-yard pass to Jalen Tolbert down the left sideline, put it right in his breadbasket. I'm excited to see what Trey Lance can do in that number 19 in the preseason. It's going to be a lot of fun with that QB2 battle.
It's going to be so much fun. I actually talked to him as well for media day, and he was so confident. He seems just more comfortable, especially being under Dak and learning from him, being under the system. But a lot of guys will be making an impression throughout training camp. We'll be looking forward to seeing that, but we'll see you up next time on The Blitz.